Alright, so I'm going to just jump into it because everybody hates people who don't do that. So, create a player. Whenever you have an idea for a character, you should always start with vitals, which the only thing that really matters is these play types. So for example, I'll just turn them off and go through them one by one. And even if you have all the tendencies right, they're not going to actually play the way you want them to unless they have this. So play initiator, if you want them to be able to call out the plays themselves. Play type 1, so isolation. Obviously it means he will call ISO plays and have people get the hell out of his way so he can score. Isolation point, wing, are both just different places on the court that he would want to do an isolation at. Not too big of a difference between any of these. Pick and roll ball handler, he's the ball handler in a pick and roll situation. Pick and roll point, the exact same thing. I don't know why 2K has this in. I'm not even joking. It's not because I'm ignorant to it, and I really don't know. I do know that it's the exact same thing. Pick and roll wing. This means that in a pick and roll setting, he is the wing player who is not involved, who is just ready to catch and shoot it. Pick and roll man, he's the guy setting the screen in a pick and roll. Post up low, he likes to get it on the block in the post. Post up high, he likes to get it near the elbow, further out from the basket. Guard post up, this means that every now and then when he's dribbling and driving, if things aren't going well, he'll just post up. At the same time, they do call plays for him to post up other guards. So if you want to make like a Kobe, a Dwayne Wade, a Michael Jordan, they definitely should have guard post up. Cutter, pretty self-explanatory. They run plays where they'll cut to the basket and get lanes. Handoff, this means they'll come by the ball, get a handoff, and drive with momentum. Usually you want somebody with decent playmaking or vision to do this. Mid-range, they'll run plays so you can get mid. 3-point, they'll run plays so you get open threes. Play type 1 is going to be whichever the most predominant one you want. So maybe we'll make a guy who runs off a bunch of screens. Every now and then he'll isolate. Before we get into tendencies, I'm going to do hot zones just so you can kind of understand what the tendencies are going to be talking about. So under basket is this little area right here. Almost pointed at it like a dumbass. Close left right here, close middle right here, close right here, and so on and so forth. You get it. Now to the nitty gritty. Step through shots. So after they pump fake, are they going to use their pivot foot, come down, spin back, continue trying to score? Much like Kobe, people that want a player with a good footwork is definitely going to want step through shot. If you want them to actually do it, anywhere from about 40 higher is pretty good. Shot under basket, obviously if it's 100, that means that the second they get under the basket, they're going to go right up. 0, pretty self-explanatory, they don't go up at all. So shot close, this is how much he generally shoots in the shot close area. So you'll notice that there's shot close left, shot close middle, and shot close right. So if shot close 100 was here, this means when he gets to the shot close area, no matter which one of them, he's going to shoot it. These three don't really matter anymore. But if you want some type of leeway, you know, you shoot shot close up, which tells him that, you know, he wants to shoot from those areas. And then you might say, well, shot close, only about 6, shot close middle, 22, shot close right, maybe 14. With these are very particular. So 22 is actually pretty high. If you do it to like 90, then the second they get there, they're going to go up, and then they're just going to take dumb shots. Shot mid-range, kind of the same thing. If you want him to be overall a guy who looks to shoot mid-ranges, then you want this up. Now keep in mind, this does not mean that they get plays ran for mid-range opportunities. This just means that when they get to certain mid-range areas on the court, that they'll shoot. So spot up mid-range, if somebody's driving, they'll spot up to shoot at the mid-range area. Off-screen shot mid-range, if you do have them with the mid-range play type, or just cutter or anything that involves a screen, and when they come off the screen and they have the ball, this is the percent that they will shoot. I say percent loosely, but for the most part it's a pretty simple concept. Shot mid-left, that's the short corner mid, that's the wing mid, top mid, right wing, and right short corner. Shot 3, same deal. Yeah, I think you get it now. Now contested jumper 3. If you want your guy to take some dumbass shots, jump this up. It doesn't have to be very high for them to start taking some dumb shots. So around like 22-ish is a kind of like a regular medium, you know? I wouldn't go much higher than like 35 unless you want this guy to start shooting some dumb shit. Contested jumper mid-range. This one I actually recommend that you go even lower because the bots in this game have a terrible tendency of just wanting to pull up middies all the time. And in other people's leagues, I see that way too often, and it's boring. Step back jumper 3, pretty self-explanatory. If you want your guy to actually do step backs, I would have it to be a very high number. It doesn't kick in very often. Now, spin jumper. I have watched a lot of 2K simulated games, and I've never once seen this actually do anything. They don't take spin jumpers. Transition pull-up 3. When you're in a fast break situation, are they going to run fade a 3? Drive pull-up 3. This doesn't happen very often, but if they're setting a very high pick and roll screen and they're coming down, similar to Damian Lillard. Drive pull-up mid-range. Now, this thing is tedious. If you don't want him pulling up every single mid-range onto the planet Earth, probably like 8. If you want him to shoot it almost every single time, do 25 or higher. God forbid you go above 25. Use glass. This just means how often they use the backboard when they shoot. Driving layup. So, driving layup, it kind of has a little funkiness to it, so I'm just going to go over that later. Standing dunk, pretty self-explanatory. This is how often you want them to go for a standing dunk when they're under the goal instead of a standing layup. So if you want to make a Shaq type guy, Dwight Howard, you want him to dunk all the time, 100. Driving dunk, the same thing. How often will he do a driving layup versus a driving dunk? If you want him to dunk all the time, chunk it up there. Flashy dunk, this gives your character a little bit of personality. If you want him to try to throw it through his legs, raise it up. Alley-oop. This is how often he wants people to throw it up to him, not how often he will pass it. So if you're trying to make like an Aaron Gordon, Blake Griffin type of dude, you want this high so that they catch lobs. Put back, obviously when they get a rebound in the air, put back dunk, whatever. Crash. This does not mean crash the backboard and try to rebound more. This means fall on the ground. In most cases, it doesn't result in a foul or anything, so if you don't want your character just on the ground for no reason, I'd put it to 0. So now we're in the layups. So let me kind of explain how this works. If you put your driving layup up to 100, for example, then he will do an iteration of these. So he'll either do a spin, hop step, euro, floater, or a regular layup. So if you put his driving layup to 100, and you put floater to 75, euro step a little lower, hop step high, whatever. Basically just creating his go-to moves, but he won't do them very often if you don't have driving layup high. So if you put his floater to very high, but your driving layup's low, then he's actually not going to do that many floaters. Okay, so here's where we get a little bit of fun. Triple threat pump fake. If you have it, honestly, this high or higher, he damn near pump fakes every time he gets the ball. So once again, if you want to raise a bunch of triple threat things so that he's kind of unpredictable, and then also over here, give him a little bit of step through shot, you can make a character with a pretty unique balance of footwork. So jab step, that little, oh, I'm going to drive, haha, no I'm not, that sort of thing. Triple threat idle, this means if I put it to 100, then it basically cancels out everything else. So triple threat shoot, just holding the ball, he's like, fuck it, bang. That's basically what it is. Setup with size up. So when you're making a character and you're going through their signature animations, you will give them a size up and you'll give them a hesitation move. And when he starts a drive, which Tendencies drive setup, that's what category we're in, he'll want to begin with one or the other. You can set the tendency that he'll do a setup with size up or a setup with hesitation. So you can set it like that, that's basically fine. If I put this to 0, then he will do one of these basically every single time. If I set no setup dribble to like 90 something, which you should, unless you really want him to sauce some people, I'd keep this pretty high. Drive. So if you're actually wanting your dude to drive, this is never a terrible thing. You always want this in the 90s. Even if you're trying to make some guy who shoots threes a lot, like a Curry build, you would want this pretty high, at least like 85 or higher. Spot up drive. So when you get the ball, once you've spotted up, you'll want to catch it and then just immediately drive to the basket. I don't know if you've seen the animation, but there's certain animations in this game where as the person catches the ball, their momentum is already going to the basket. This kind of gives them that. So slashers, this is great. Off-screen drive. So this kind of cancels out the other one earlier for the shooting. We wanted them to do off-screen middies a lot or off-screen threes a lot. This is the alternative, driving. So if I put this to 95, then he'll want to drive off a screen more than he'll want to just shoot it off a screen. And drive right. So if we put this 50, that means that he will drive to the left and to the right at the exact same amount of times. A little bit to the right, and he'll drive right more. A little bit to the left, he'll drive left more. Now, into all of your moves. Honestly, this is ridiculously high. If you go into a bunch of like throwback all-time people and look at their tendencies for this sort of stuff, it's through the roof, and they do way too much. If you want something that's clean and makes the character look smart, then you want to go maybe something like driving crossover 5, spin 2, driving step back, maybe about 7. If you want them to have some go-to moves, then I would suggest putting it to like 15 or 20, but really no higher than that. After that, it just becomes a point where they have a wide open lane, and then they're just still doing dribble moves, and it doesn't look good at all. So that's basically the same through all of these moves, and then you get to no driving dribble move, which a common theme for all of these is there's always kind of a slider that can cancel everything out. So if I put this to 100, then everything I did just above doesn't matter. So like I said earlier, if you don't want him to just be doing crazy moves, I would put this to like 92 or higher. If you put it very low, then you know he'll just be the sauce god. Attack strong on drive. This is pretty self-explanatory. If you put it to 100, then he's just going to drive stronger. 0, then he'll get pushed out and be weak. Be a weak little boy. Dish to open man. Now, if you put this too high, then this guy will pass too much. So I've made a bunch of builds in the past. If you want like a Kobe build, a guy who passes when he needs to, honestly about 27's around perfect. If you want your guy to be a legit passer, I'd go 60 to 70. If you want your dude to just pass all the time, ridiculously too much, 90s. Yeah, flashy pass. So out of all the times that he passes, what's the odds that he'll pass? So for example, if I put this to 70, this does not mean that 70% of the time he'll do a flashy pass. This just means he'll do it often. Alley-oop pass, kind of the same thing. You don't want this too high or he'll start throwing things just out of bounds. For a good passer, I recommend like 60, 70. 70's kind of pushing it. But yeah, around this range if you want him to be a good passer that looks for that. Regular people, anywhere from like 10 to 40. Tendencies post-game. Alright, so about canceling things out. This is kind of the god of that. All of the tendencies basically cancel each other out. So post up. Even if you have the play type to where he gets in the post a lot, he's not going to regularly post up as much as you might want him to unless you have this up. So if you want to be a pure back to the basket guy, 95 is fine. Don't think that, oh, if I have it 95, he's never going to do anything else. That's not true. Honestly, for any player that you actually want to get it in the post, I'd go 75 or higher. Post shimmy shot. So in the post you have two different things that have a shimmy. You have a post hook and you have a post fade. So for example, if I do post shimmy shot 100, then now anytime he takes a hook or a fadeaway, he will do a shimmy fade or a shimmy hook, which does go in less, but it looks cool. Post face up. So this is basically where, without dribbling, take it from the post, turn around, face your defender. So for example, if I have this 100, that means every time he gets in the post, he will turn around and face the person up. Post back down, he basically just pushes his defender down into the paint. Post aggressive back down is basically if you were doing it and holding right trigger. So if you want a really aggressive Shaq type guy, feel free to just bump this up to 100 and don't even have him do regular post back down moves. Shoot from the post. So out of all of this stuff, everything on here, he will never shoot the ball from the post if this is not at least 1 or higher. Of course 1, he's barely going to shoot it anyway. This is what I was saying earlier. If you have your pass to open man too high and this too low, then every time he gets in the post, someone's going to just sag off just a tiny bit and he's going to pass out. So if you actually want him to be aggressive in the post and try to make moves, probably about 65 or higher. I kind of forgot to mention here that if you have shoot from post too high, the character won't even back anybody down. They'll just immediately shoot it the second they get it. Post hook to the left, that's turning to his left, up. Post hook to the right, to his right, up. Post fade left, post fade right, same thing. Post up and under, this is basically when he fakes a hook or a fade and then goes underneath them to the basket. Fun if you want to make like a Hakeem type of guy. And depending on how you have the post fade versus the post hook. So right now, for example, I have him do fades almost every single time more than he would do a hook. He's very, very, very rarely going to do a hook shot. So if he was going to do a post up and under, he would do a post fade up and under way more likely than a hook. Post hop shot, these don't go in very often. I don't really recommend that you have them. Basically what he's going to do is just take the ball from the post, hop off to the side, shoot a jumper. post step back shot, these go in decently often. If you want your character to be like a mellow or something, who's a little creative in the post, that'd be fun. Post drive. So post drive and post spin are a tiny bit different. They both do almost the exact same thing. They just have different animations associated with them. Sorry that I had my thing over there. This probably helps a lot more. So for example, if you have post drive, then he will use quick first step more to get around his defenders and just his raw strength. Whereas post spin, if you have the post spin technician badge, it's more of a finesse. Post drop step, this is big if you want to just body your defender. Good for shack builds, that sort of thing. Post hop step. So this is also another thing that I do not recommend on almost all of my players. I put this on 0. The reason being is because the move itself is just they're in the post and then they hop towards the basket. But it doesn't actually get them around their defender at all. They just kind of miss every single time. There's no point to do it. And shot. If you want your character to actually take shots and get the ball from their teammates, you're going to want this up. Well, this one would be the one where you get the ball from the teammates. This would be the one where basically how often they run plays for you. So if you're Kobe, 100. Roll versus pop. So I used to kind of have the wrong outlook on this, and I had to play a lot before I understood. Unlike right versus left on the driving, if you go right, you actually roll more. If you go left, you actually pop more. So what this means is when you set a screen for somebody, whether they're going to pop off for a jump shot or they're going to roll to the basket. Transition spot up, so in a fast break situation, are they going to run to the corner like Klay Thompson, or they're just going to keep running to the basket? Now these are fun. So I've made a little James Harden build. I've made some sauce boys in the past, and if you want them to sauce anybody that can get it, turn this up. That's fun. But keep in mind, you shouldn't just use these crazy. The average person should probably have this at like maybe 55 for a poor defender. You always want to go at a poor defender average. Maybe like 15 and then 2-0. But if you're trying to make a James Harden, some guy who really doesn't care, then if someone's bad, every single time. If someone's an average defender, then the average isn't good enough. Let's put that about 70. Good defender, we can do about 35. And an elite defender, maybe we'll try Kawhi every now and then, 20. Play discipline. So, are they going to do dumb shit, basically? 100, they're Tim Duncan. 0, they're JaVale McGee. Pass interceptions. So, how often do they go for steals in the passing lane? You kind of always want this up. There's really nothing bad about having this up. Take charge. Now, there's a lot of times where they don't actually take a charge. They just kind of sit there and put their hands on their nuts instead of playing good D. So if you want them to take charges, then you should turn it up. But for anyone else that you actually want to be good and have fun watching, 0. On ball steal. Be careful, because this doesn't mean they'll get steals more. This just means they'll reach more. So you want to find a good balance to where they go for steals, but they're not just fouling out of the game. So if they have like pickpocket gold and they have like an 84 steal, you might want this around 81 or so. If they want them to be extra aggressive and almost foul out every now and then, maybe like 89, 91, 92. You want them to be a park player, 100. Contest shot. So this does not mean pressing the Y button and actually going for a block. That's that. Contest shot just means, do they actually care enough to put their hand up? So Carmelo would be about here. And a good player would be around, like, if you want to make a good player, I'd always do around 80 to 90. There's nothing wrong with this. The only bad thing is sometimes they fall for pump fakes. Block shots. So this one's pretty fun, man. If you want a guy who just falls for every pump fake, but every now and then when they don't pump fake, he will beat that shit, you want this 100. For a well-rounded player, you probably want this to be probably about 65, 80. The reason it's so high is because bots are not generally designed. They don't have a high block shot tendency. So in chase down situations, bots don't go for them very often. If you're trying to make a LeBron James and you're wondering why he's not doing it, you need to turn up this tendency to block. Fouled is how often he fouls. Even if you turn this to 0, he's still going to foul sometimes, but very little. Hard foul. So you want him to be the type of guy like Marcus Cousins, maybe, who's going to throw your dude to the ground, maybe get thrown out of the game. Hard foul, 100. Regular player, obviously you want him to be like 25, 10, maybe even 5, maybe even 0. And keep in mind that badges do increase your overall. I can go through the personality ones and all the badges in the game and actually tell you in what situations they're going to help your simulated character and how they're going to help characters that you actually will play as in another video. And that's basically it. If you liked it, hit the like button, brother. I stream all the time, basically every other day. I'll link that in the description if you ever want to watch me. I know a lot about this fucking game.